Welcome back to another podcast of Road to Abundance. Today we have Kris Krohn with us today. Amazing, very successful entrepreneur in a lot of aspects in his life. I'll let him introduce himself because he does a lot of different things. So I don't want to mess up the message. I know you're very well known for real estate, but you're way more than that. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, Mike, first of all, just really happy to be here on your podcast, The Road to Abundance. I mean, first of all, just a really great title because I think abundance is a really big part of the game. At some point in my life, I got lost thinking that I was going to be defined by wealth, achievement, how much money I made. And then when I got there, I was like, wait a second, this isn't actually all that it's cracked up to be. And so for me, over the last 20 years, I've been searching for balance in the game of my health, in my relationships with my wife, with my 4 kids, in business and wealth, in the philanthropy that I do in the world. And, the world is definitely screaming that balance is a lie. It's a hoax. You can't have it. And I just don't believe that. I believe that there's an abundance. There's time for everything. We don't need to commit the sin of busy. And with that, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited what your show's about. And my background, I've done my fair share of wealth building. I've transacted over 6,500 single family homes, a couple $1 billion worth of real estate. And today it's a machine that does that. But beyond that, I own hundreds of businesses. I love private equity. Business is such a creative art form. And so I love growing it. And then aside from that, I do bodybuilding. I've done some bodybuilding shows. My wife and I were up at 4 a.m. at the gym every morning together. And then,
Wow.
Just my wife and my family and I, it's like the most important thing. So we've put so much time and effort into that. And so I've found a stride that's working well for me. And I love creating value in the world.
Well, that's amazing, man. That's a lot of things. Probably myself in 15, 20 years, I see that you're without minus 2 kids, but the rest I can say I'll aim for the same thing. So
Love it.
I respect it. And you're totally right. When I named my company, when I named The Road to Abundance, for me, I had the same, when I was young, I had the same image about money that you describe. It's like, I'll get everything when I get money. And then I understood that, I'm still miserable after I got money. What's next? And then it's exactly a guy like you that I want to have on the podcast, that for me, you represent abundance because you have the 4 pillars of your life very well tuned in, from health to relationship to wealth to happiness. And you balance life, work, and you make it happen because you decide it's a priority for you. So can you tell me a little bit more about your backstory? Like, how did it start for you, and when was the moment that you realized that it needed to shift?
I think I just start by saying that to me, there's no greater force on the earth that for me than love. I was looking for my soulmate. I found her when I was 22 years old. We got married a year later, and we have 4 kids now. My oldest is 17, my youngest is 12. And my wife has always been like my deepest motivation. My wife and God, these are the 2 things that really drive me to pursue excellence more than anything. And so knowing that I was going to have a family someday, when I was younger, I decided that I wanted to go to college. I was going to be a doctor. And when the time came to enroll in those classes, I realized that I wasn't really good at chemistry, the sciences, biology, and I got weeded out of it really, really hard. And it was super disappointing. It was hard on me because I was like, wait, how am I going to be able to take care of my family? I had enough awareness in my early 20s because I had this telemarketing job. My first year, I made $18,000, but I talked to people that made $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year. And this is 20 years ago. And when I was interviewing them, I was like, man, this is really weird. All these people in their 50s and 60s went to college. They got a piece of paper that says they're smart. They've been 401k'ing, IRAing, and then they're nearing retirement and they have a net worth of $200,000, $300,000. I'm like, that's not enough money. And so I when I knew that I wasn't going to be a doctor, I couldn't find a career in college that was going to satisfy the financial demands that I was placing on my life. Yeah. And that's when I actually started going outside the university to say, hey, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a better way. And so there was definitely some huge disappointment for me in the beginning. Not being a doctor was a huge disappointment. Breaking the news to my wife was a huge disappointment. But I'll tell you what, the day that changed my life was when on a crappy day of telemarketing, I came home early. I felt so unmotivated. I felt depleted. I was waking up at 5 and 6 a.m. to go to class. I was getting to work by 11 or noon. I was working till 8 or 9 p.m. at night. I did this every day. And on this particular day, I was just having awful phone calls, didn't want to talk to anybody. And then I came home and I found my wife in a state that I did not anticipate. I found her in tears. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've known this woman for a year and a half and I've never seen her cry this way.
Mhm.
Someone must have died. So I assumed the worst. And finally, she collected herself and she said, Kris, we have tuition due in 3 weeks and we can't pay for it. We have rent due in 5 days and we already spent next week's paycheck. But the reason why she was crying, Mike, is because she had gone grocery shopping and she bounced a check for the first time, basically walked out with no food and went home to a tiny apartment with no food. And I found her
Wow.
crying because she was hungry. And I was like,
Yeah.
how did this happen? I felt like an awful person. I felt like an awful provider. I felt like I had failed my best friend. And for someone that put so much into love, it like my heart broke. I felt like her heart broke. And that's when I said, man, my parents fought my whole life about money. I don't want to go down that road. And that's where I found the initial motivation to do whatever it took to live a different life and produce a different financial outcome. It was motivated by love and pain.
Wow, that's a beautiful story, man. Of course, as a man, on top of it, like I remember when I was young, I was putting a lot of pressure. I was in high school saying I'm going to be millionaire by 25, which didn't happen. I was bankrupt at 25. It's okay.
Okay.
and
I like
and
it.
that's when I had my similar story as you. I was like, well, this is bad when you can't afford your rent and all that stuff. And as I wasn't in, like, my relationship broke up. It was very toxic, but you love the woman. And on top of it, you have to look at her and be like, fuck, how am I going to provide for the
Yeah.
woman I love? So at that moment, you dropped university and you were like, I have to do something different.
So actually, I didn't drop out of university because my mother-in-law, I think, would have killed me. And I'd been brainwashed my whole life, degree. So I ended up getting a degree while I built a business on the side. I started becoming very, very open-minded, and I started just getting very, very basic and went to my street smarts. And I said, okay, where do you find wealthy people? The first answer was not in university. So then I said, well, where are they? And I started putting myself out there in the community. I started searching. And within a year, I found 3 people that had each made over $10 million in real estate. And
Wow.
I just begged them to take me as a student. And I followed them along and I just implemented everything that they said. I took notes. I went where they went. I just followed them around like a lovesick puppy dog, learning everything that I possibly could, sponging it up. And 4.5 years later, when I graduated college, I also graduated from needing a job because I had 25 properties. They were producing $12,000 a month of residual income, and I didn't need to work. And I was financially free. I wouldn't say I was rich, but I will say that I got all of my time back and I didn't need to work. And that was kind of like the beginning of the rest of my life.
And how old were you when this happened?
26.
Wow. So there's 2 things I want to point out for people that listen right now is, first, Kris, he found 3 mentors, got away, even if it's begging, whatever he did to get them to show him you can pay for mentor. You can find a way. There's always a way to find mentor. Now with YouTube and all that stuff, it's even easier than before. And then Kris put his head down for 4.5 years to be financially free. So he didn't look back, didn't feel sorry for himself. He just took action to change his life.
I would add a couple more things to that as well. When I had this really disempowering moment with my wife, I did feel like garbage. I felt like trash. I felt less than the dust of the earth. But I also chose to make another decision, which is I will do whatever it takes to never feel this way. When someone experiences trauma, they either lean into it and become very demotivated. I did the opposite, and I became very, very motivated. The second thing is now 20 years later, I get to meet people all over the world. I think last week I had like 8.5 million views on my social media.
Wow.
And I'm amazed that the majority of people, probably 98%, are closed-minded and unteachable. They want what I have, but they're not hungry. And I think that if a person wants to go far in life, and if you want to win and compress time and win real fast, you're going to have to be very, very hungry for that success. And, I was insatiable at that time. So I compressed and I basically said, if most people retire at 65, I want to retire at 25. And I did it at 26. And the irony is that I'm still working. I work part-time, but I do it for fulfillment. I do it for creativity. I do it to bring value in the world. and no more, because the rest of my time is going to be enjoying my life with my loved ones, preserving my health, and then doing other things that are also deeply meaningful that don't have anything to do with making money.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think a lot of people are doing exactly that. They do what I call mental masturbation. So they go on your content, they're like, I'm going to do something big. And I was one of that guy for years. It's like, I know I have potential, but as long as I don't try, I can't say that I fail. So I'm keeping my ego high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know I'll do something big, but I'm not attempting. I'm not hungry. I'm comfortable and I don't do action.
Yes, there's a lot of people that get stuck in the learning mode of like, well, I don't know enough, so I'm just going to keep learning. And I'm like, actually, it's surprising how little you need to know to have a lot of success. In fact, over the last 20 years, I've had now over 30 mentors, and I keep
Wow.
finding them. I learn from them. I still feel like I'm the white belt. I love learning and growing. But what I do is I find something to sink my teeth into, and then I master it. And then I set it, and then I automate it for someone to run. And then I find my next thing, and then I build a machine where the machine builds machines for me. And then I set it and forget it, and I move on to the next thing. And that's been a very enjoyable way of life because I love learning, I love growing, and I'm always curious for more.
That's very awesome because actually you're very successful. I don't exactly know your net worth, but let's say you were a few million for sure, and you're still getting mentor, you're still paying for personal growth, you're still doing all that stuff. So no matter where you're in life, you believe that we should invest in ourselves.
Yeah, actually, people are so stubborn about investing in themselves. They're like, well, I'll invest in a career, I'll invest in college so that I can learn skills. But I'm like, what about investing in happiness? What about investing in love? What about investing in the shortcuts of learning how to win, right? Like there's always a
Yeah.
better way of doing something. And I'm obsessed with always finding out what's the better way. When I got into the game of real estate investing, I didn't just buy properties. I actually asked a very specific question. I said, what strategy should I do that takes the least time, the least effort, and the least risk, but makes the most money?
That's
And
amazing.
that strategy turned into a way of transacting real estate that took the least time, it took the least effort, it took the least risk, it made me the most money. And that's what set me free in 4.5 years. But knowing what I know today, I can do it even faster than that. So there's always a shortcut. And mentors helped me figure that out, that there's always a good way and a slow way.
That's amazing. And I know you're killing it in real estate and your story is beautiful and people should learn from it. I wanted to also share a few practical stuff. So I'll ask you a few questions that I got for you on real estate and we'll start with that. Like, how do you feel that real estate has changed over the past maybe 1 or 2 decades? Like, because when you started and now it's probably a different game. So how did it change and what would you do different now?
Yeah, so that's the irony. The way I play it, the game hasn't changed. It's done exactly what I knew it would. And that means that real estate continues to increase in value over time. In fact, single family homes, that's something I specialize in. It's so popular today that if you forecast what the prices are going to be in the next 2 decades, we now have hedge funds that have entered the game. They are deploying $50 billion into buying up single family homes. Over the next decade, they want to own 10% more of the market than people. And even the World Economic Forum admits, they're like, real estate in the future will be a service. People won't own it. It won't be an American dream thing. They'll just rent it from us and they'll lease it from us. And I'm very against that because I love people being able to own their own financial destiny. And at retirement, people have a greater net worth in their home equity than they do in their retirement account. And the number one regret at 65 is, why didn't I buy 5 more homes? I'd be a multimillionaire. So the game actually hasn't changed. It just looks different. And, even when 2008 hit, or even when the pandemic hit, didn't disrupt my strategy at all. Actually did the opposite and intensified it and made me more money.
Because you saw an opportunity. And so a quick question that you made me thought about, like all those big hedge fund and stuff, now they're entering the game. I know that they're saying like, you're not going to own anything, you're going to lease or whatever they say. So the fact that they enter the game, that they buy everything and they have a choice maybe to not rent and raise the price, and they have more capital than the normal people like me. How will that change the game?
Yeah, I think that, if you take a look at 2 generations ago and you compare the boomers to our millennial generation at the age of 40, the millennials have 5 times less money than that prior generation. And if
Yeah.
you take a look at Gen Z and where we're headed right now, people are becoming extraordinarily like they're okay with less, and they're becoming acclimated to less. And there's something beautiful about minimalism and flexibility,
Mhm.
and being nimble on your toes. I actually really value that. But people are becoming poorer and poorer and poorer. And with the advent of AI right now, I use AI in all of my businesses. And it's forecasted over the next decade that the middle class of 65% will shrink another 10%. And equally, half of them are becoming poor and half of them are becoming wealthy. So we definitely have very interesting circumstances in a world where there's more opportunity than ever before. It's never been easier to make money.
Yeah.
Abundance has never been more simple. In fact, I like when I predict where the world is headed, you'll have people making double or triple the amount of money, but working part time. They'll have so much more flexibility, but that's for only those that get on that bandwagon and figure that one out.
So they instead of complaining about the opportunity or complaining that AI is going to take their job, I'm the same. I fired a few employee and now I use AI for a lot of stuff that I used to have employee to kind of brainstorm with me where I didn't have. Now AI does it even faster. And instead of
Yes.
complaining, I'm trying to find a way that I can utilize it.
Yes. Yep. I think that you have to get with the changing times. And so part of that is also understanding trends. Real estate, single family real estate will be one of the most popular forms of real estate for the next 2 decades. On average, I earn when I put a little bit of money on a down payment on a deal, let's take $50,000 from
Mhm.
a 401k or an IRA or equity in another home or savings. When I put that into real estate, on average, I'm earning 34% a year on my money. That means with compound interest, it doubles every 2 years. And that means that over 20 years, $50,000 turns into $17 million. dollars.
So how do you do that? So how someone like me, I don't have real estate right now. The reason is I was investing all my money in myself and my business for the moment. But let's say I want to get in the game. What would be your advice for beginner like me?
Yeah. So, but before I answer that, let me comment on this idea of you're doing what everybody does. You invest in your business, and one of the things I paid $1 million for one of my mentors to teach me this lesson. Your business gets your time or your money, but it doesn't get both. So for me, I do not invest in my business. If I'm going to give it time, it doesn't get my money. If it gets my money, it doesn't get my time. And that's because ultimately your business is a great way to build concentrated wealth, but it's investing in other things on how you maintain and expand that wealth. And so I personally believe, Mike, that everyone should own real estate. But I do have a hack on how to do it. I think that old school thinking says do it yourself. I'm a lone wolf. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to go to a seminar and I'm going to do it myself. And I think that's the worst advice that someone can take. I think that you should have a mentor and someone should
Mhm.
walk you through it, because if you make a mistake in business or real estate, it can set you back a decade. It can really hurt you. Bankruptcy, that hurts for a little bit until you get back on your
Yeah.
feet. And and so one of the things that I teach people how to do is exactly what I do financially. Anytime I enter a new type of business that I don't know anything about, like how I got into software. I got
Yeah.
into fintech because I found experts in that space. I brought other resources and we became partners. So in real estate, one of the things that I provide as a service for people all over the world is they watch my social media, they learn about me, and one of the things that I say is, well, I can either teach you how to do this, and about 20% of the people want this. Or I tell them we can partner up and we can do it together and be 50-50 partners. And I'll do all the work and you put the money up. And about 80% of the people prefer that. 20 years ago, 80% wanted to learn how to do it and only 20% wanted to partner up. It's swapped because people value their time different. And
Yeah.
I've been able to invest in about 20 different industries now because I have partners and experts in these different industries. And so partnership is actually a shortcut to not doing the 10,000 Malcolm Gladwell hours to master something.
Yeah, that's very smart. And I mean, it, for not taking the risk and you know what you're doing, 50% uh, is a lot of upside. Like I can either go like I can't be good at everything, so I acknowledge that having partner, and if I don't want to learn real estate, that's a very good solution. Like let's say I don't want to do it because I want to focus on other stuff. It's really cool. And I remember you told me that you have a free wealth.
Yeah, it's a wealth consultation. If anyone actually
Okay.
wants to explore, I make money in 300 different ways.
Okay.
And real estate is just one of them. So when people want to explore, because some people want cash flow, some people want
Hmm.
equity building, some people want long-term growth, some people need tax benefits because they're paying too much in taxes. So what I do is I've got a team that I've trained up to provide free wealth strategy sessions. It's basically an opportunity to look at your finances and suggest different things that could basically help you do better financially. And if anyone wants to go to freewealthgift.com/wealth call. So it's freewealthgift.com/wealth call. You can go there and basically just sign up for free to talk to a member of my team. And basically, I'll give you my perspective on what I would do in your shoes because I love to play a game. And the game is, if I woke up today in your shoes, what choices do I have to make to become a multimillionaire as fast as possible? And we share those, and sometimes they resonate.
Awesome. I'll put the link. I'll ask your team for the link, and I'll put it in below the video so you guys can do it. I would love to have your advice. It's personal and it's for the audience that is listening. Like, how do you find good real estate deal, and how do you negotiate them the best? Like, what's your tips that people can apply right now?
Yeah. So Dolph Darus, one of my very first mentors, taught me that you sometimes have to look at 100 deals to find a really good one. And so sometimes people just don't look at enough deals. If you look long enough, you're going to find something under market value. And so that's one of the first secrets. Now, I use 17 different strategies on how I find really good deals, but one of the most basic ones is you could actually even work with a realtor. Somebody that actually is in the real estate market all the time. You just tell them your standards. Your standards are to buy below market. And some of them know how to do that. Most don't. But I play in a game where 10% of all real estate is on sale at a really great price. And you just have to have some patience in that. I also have a book that people can find online for free. It's my first book I wrote called The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. And in it, I actually teach how to find really good deals and how to negotiate them and how to get them under contract. So you can go find me on YouTube or anywhere, and you'll find that book is for free as well.
Okay, amazing. I'll put the link. And like, what do you feel is the key trait for an entrepreneur? Like, what makes the huge difference between when you were 26 and 46? I mean, there's 20 years is a lot of experience, knowledge. What do you feel that you changed that gave you the most edge?
Yeah, two things. Speaking technically, in the beginning, I got really wrapped up into the strategy or the house or the deal. These days in investing, I care about one thing: ROI. What is my return on investment? And I recently came out with another book that compares the top 5 ROIs that I invest in. I invest in some things that produce me 25 to 35% a year on my money, other things that produce 500% a year on my money, other things that produce 5,000% on my money. And so it's a diversification of ROI. ROI is, you could look at the stock market, you could look at day trading, you could look at flipping properties, buy and hold, you could look at this business or a franchise, and you can compare all of them together with ROI. So I wrote a book about ROI, and I basically teach people how to diversify their ROI. And so that's something that I think has made me a much better investor today than I was in the past, because ROI is a known performance. Everyone, by the way, in this country, in this day and age, should be wealthy. There's no reason why by retirement, a couple of decades from now, you're not worth millions of dollars with very, very little time, effort, and energy. Like, it's actually, being wealthy is very, very, very simple. You have to be good at saving money. Here's the practical advice. You have to, 62% of the country live check to check. Don't be that. You
Yeah.
should save at least 20% of what you make. And no, it's not for a nicer house or a nicer lifestyle. This is money for, number 2, investing. And you invest in things where your money comes back to you. For example, a 401k, your money doesn't come back. An IRA, your money doesn't come back. The stock market, your money doesn't come back. It's a long-term game that someone else is playing. But if I buy a franchise and every month I get a dividend, my money came back. If I buy real estate and every month I get positive cash flow, my money came back. So you invest in things where your money comes home. And then the third thing that you do is you take your winnings and you reinvest them. If you do that with good ROI standards, anyone can be wealthy. You just need a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's funny because I was just talking about with my girlfriend like this morning, and I was like, the main thing that I did before bankrupt and after bankruptcy, because I had nobody to back me. So it's like when I lost everything, I had to make myself again. And
Yeah.
from that day on, I took a decision. It was a lot for me, but I was like 50% of my money I put in a bank account and I don't look at it right now. And I did
Yep.
that for 2 years and a half. Then I moved to LA with that money. And then I still done it while I was making a lot of money, which now gave me the opportunity to start a new business without stress. And I could close down the other one that I didn't want to do anymore. And
Yeah.
people are like, how did you do it? I'm like, because when I was banking, I didn't go spend, and I could have the 911, I could have the Lambo, I could have a lot of stuff, but I was like, nah, I want to make sure that I'm good with my money, because I learned
Smart.
from losing everything. And what do you feel is the best way that someone can develop a business mindset, like a winning mindset, to not be scared maybe of failure, setback? Like, what is preventing most of people from taking action?
You know, it's interesting because we live in a world where the internet came out and the internet answers what? Now we have Chat GPT that answers how. And when you have the what and you have the how and people still aren't successful, what it reveals is that the strategy is never what makes someone wealthy.
Yeah.
It's rather the mindset. And so
Mhm.
people do need to invest in the game of going on a journey, personal growth, personal development. I wrote a book called Limitless, all about uncovering your limiting beliefs, because no one escapes childhood without walking away saying either I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not good at making money, I don't come from money. We have all of these ideas. There's 10,000 ideas that form our perception, and 2/3 of them are jacked up. 2/3 of them limit us. 2/3 of them are us basically being cruel to ourselves. So what we do is we have a lot of God-fearing people that say, well, I believe in God. And I'm like, who cares if you believe in God if you don't believe in you? You're the other half of the equation. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people that just don't believe in themselves. So developing confidence and self-belief comes from, I believe, personal development, comes from some basic things like integrity, doing what you say you're going to do. And every person at some point in their life, if you're serious about abundance, not just wealth, I call it have it all, which is like, man, I got it going on in my marriage. I got it going on in my sex life. I got it going on as a dad. I got it going on, in my work. I got it going on in
Yeah.
my health. How you get it on everywhere is by investing in you. And that's kind of what you've been talking about, Mike, which is how does a person invest in themselves? Well, you look at joining masterminds, you look at hanging around other successful people, and you take notes, you learn from them. Make sure that at least every other book that you're reading is a personal development book. There's a lot of great books that are out there
Yeah.
right now that can help expose you to your own limiting notions, create awareness on them, and then figure out how to overcome them. Those are a couple of things that I'd recommend people do.
That's awesome. I'm curious to have your take. I know you did a lot of personal development. Maybe you don't want to talk about it, so I'm throwing the question. You believe in microdosing, psilocybin? Like, what type of supplement do you take?
Well, I'm definitely on all sorts of gear when it comes to like improving my health and my bodies. And then I will tell you that I think that when it comes to all sorts of substances, that some of those are really great actually for therapy. If you take a look at MDMA, it's been a 40-year journey. It's within a year or two of now actually getting federal approval.
Yeah.
MDMA is probably the most successful therapy on the market. And it's got a bad rap from how it was introduced in the 70s, but it's almost about to be legalized. And I know a lot of people who have been able to do a lot of really good work to
Mhm.
overcome their limiting beliefs through some of these, plant-based medicines, some of these journeys. So it's legit, it's real, and it's powerful.
That's awesome. And I believe, coming from a bodybuilder, you do TRT.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of substances. I've got a really great bodybuilding coach, so I mean, every man after the age of 30 should be on some form of
Yeah.
TRT. Your life without even just normal testosterone levels is going to put you in deficiency in your sleep, in your energy, in your organs. And fortunately, over the last decade, hormone therapy has now become acceptable. Whereas I
Yeah.
think a decade ago, there was a stigma like, oh, you're just trying to do, you're trying to do drugs, and I'm like, listen, there are some things that are out there that are really good for the body. I'm going to live to be over 140 years old. I know that. I got 100 plus more years in me, and I'm going to treat myself that way. I follow the futurists. I look at the advances in medicine and science. And
Yeah.
if you're not, I'll spend 3 hours every day on my body, either in a gym or in some kind of spa or in my food prep. I'm proactively taking care of myself in meditation. And a lot of it is geared towards living my healthiest life possible, because that's also a financial investment. That's an
Yeah.
investment in my next 100.
I really like that, and that's one of the reason. Like, when I was looking at you, I was like, you represent exactly what I feel like is abundance, because a lot of people forget their health, and they're scared first. They don't do the study behind psychedelic. They don't do the study behind testosterone. They don't do the study behind the biohacking, and like they don't take care of themselves. And you know you're gonna live with yourself for another 100 years, so you better take care of yourself. People don't eat. Also, don't find it's not cool, man. We don't find it cool to do gratitude and be meditation, but
Yep.
you're a very successful person, very good looking man, and you believe in all that stuff. And how would you say that taking care of your health has contributed to building your wealth and also being happier?
I remember when I became a multimillionaire for the first time in my 20s, and I wasn't healthy. And I remember feeling like, wow, I have this money, but I feel like something is missing here in my health. And so part of it was like, is this even worth it? Because someone once told me, they said, a dying man has one wish, a millionaire has a million. And so I just decided that I needed to reform my approach to life. Same thing in my marriage. I wasn't putting a lot of effort into it. I wasn't putting a lot of time, and there was a lot of stress. And it's interesting. I'm a big believer in investment. When I invest my money in things that produce, I get a return. When I put an investment into my body, I get a return. When I put an investment into my marriage, I get a return. And so you get out of life what you put in. My wife and I, we get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. By 4:20, we are at our own private gym. We are doing our cardio for 40 minutes while we're doing an active meditation. And man, that meditation brings me to tears. It is powerful. It is like pulling wisdom out of the heavens. Then we'll spend an hour with our coaches, bodybuilding, training our bodies. Then we'll go home. We'll spend an hour just on our marriage. It's just us time. And then we have an hour with our kids after we've woken up to our best selves. I've done my reading. So meditation, prayer, reading books, gaining knowledge, waking up my mind, waking up my body, waking up my soul, waking up my emotions. It's a 5-hour routine that I do 6 days a week. Sunday, I try to sleep 10 hours. But for those 6 days of the week, it's I put a massive investment into me, and my wife shares that. It draws us close to each other, and it's part of how we are invigorating our minds. It's part of how we're investing in our bodies, and it's how we invest in our relationships.
That's awesome, because a lot of people have this. I'm very against the previous hustle culture that they used to preach. You work all the time and you don't care of your health and you don't care of yourself. And you're the perfect example that you can have it all. You can focus on yourself, do the me routine, then the business, because you, like you said, you prep yourself to the best version of yourself before you attack business. So you're in a what I call Zen mode, flow state, however you want to say it, that
Yep.
you're going to be the most productive and not only busy because you took care of that. And not only that, it improves your relationship with your wife, with your kid. And it's beautiful to see. And how do you feel like, when I was young, I was feeling like, a man, what's cool is to have all the girls and clap cheeks all day and doing all that. And then the more I matured, I was like, no, actually is having a woman to build my life with and an empire and be the woman I respect and that helped me. How do you feel that your wife supported you when you choose the right woman? How much does it impact your growth and success as a man?
I was never really a player, a party animal. After high school, I spent 2 years in Germany as a missionary for my church. And so when I got back from that very special experience, I felt late and I felt behind. And so I wanted to play catch up. And so when I went to college, I was just in a rush to get through it all. And I didn't know on the third day of college I was going to meet my wife that I was going to marry 10 months later. But it's now been 21 years and she is my very best friend. I can't believe now in, my early 40s that I have 20-year history with this woman. And, most relationships do go through an arc where you fall in love with your eyes half closed. And then at some point you develop comfort levels with each other and love becomes transactional and sometimes mean spirited. And then you either get divorced, you split up, or you go somewhere new. And my wife and I have been through that whole roller coaster, and now we're sitting on cloud nine. It's like, this is the best. This woman loves me. She supports me. We do everything together. She, we take my jet. We do business trips together. We're traveling. We were just in Iceland with friends. In 2 weeks, we're taking our kids to Japan for a couple of weeks. Like we don't have that hustler mentality of work hard. I work about 25 or 30 hours a week. And for me, I do that so that I can express creativity. I can express genius so that I can grow. but that's enough. And then the rest of the time is with my family and with my wife, with my health, and also with me. It's like,
Yeah.
who do I want to become? What do I want to do with my life? And
Yeah.
that balance I'm very grateful to have it, but it's what creates every day that some of the most amazing memories. Cause I'm not stuck in one mode like I used to be, like, oh, I'm 100-hour a week work mode, as if somehow money was going to solve what I was looking for, which it doesn't.
And do you feel that, doing all that and having what I call the 4 pillar help you to build more wealth and more abundance and be happier because you're way more productive?
It's really weird. At first I did it, Mike, because I thought that it would. And the truth is it does. But I then got to a place where I also say, who cares? Like 2 months ago, my wife and I were in Ukraine doing a 2-week service mission, leading 2 different groups of people. And then a month ago, I was in Mexico helping out with some of the kids that we support in safe houses that Underground Railroad brings out of sex slavery. And those are examples of things that they're giving back, and they are so deeply meaningful. You can't do that when you're concerned with money or just building, because abundance or true wealth it's not a dollar amount. I
Yeah.
believe it's measured above all in feelings and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so I think that emotional intelligence trumps knowledge. And as much as I love knowledge, how I choose to control my feelings every day and how I feel about my life is more important than anything else. So being the man that makes choices where I'm investing in my relationships comes back and bears fruits that feel good. Or when I'm doing my philanthropy, that comes back and bears fruits that cause me to feel good. And if my work is not so much money driven, but rather helping my clients experience the results that I want for them, that pays me in a paycheck, also very different than money. So if it doesn't bring fulfillment, and if it doesn't bring joy, peace, and happiness, I'm out. Those are the things that I value the most.
That's amazing. And with your wife, like, she works with you, like she does project with you, she contribute with you. Like, she's not just a stay-at-home beautiful woman. She build and help you and support you in everything you do.
So she actually doesn't like work with me. She's super supportive. Like, I put on events. So I own an event center in Utah because I put on regular events. So she always comes to the events. She'll come on stage. She'll share a beautiful message. She works inside of our foundation and helps deliver the good to the world that we feel called to do. Then aside from that, she's this incredible, beautiful mother. And then she has her own path in life where she's helping, serving other people as well. And there's a lot of overlap. But the most important overlap is just the love and support. It's that, we're at a point in our marriage where we share this thing called spousal advocacy. And what it means is whatever I want, I get because I want it. And whatever she wants, she gets because she wants it. I don't care what it is. Like, I love this woman so much that if she wants it, she gets to have it. I'm going to advocate for her. And I'm going to advocate for her more than she wants it herself. And she does the same for me. What happens when 2 people without any transaction are loving each other because they're so in love with each other and they want to give each other, make everyone's dream come true? Like, that's magic, right? And that's not something that you get lucky to have. You have to work towards that. And we've
You
put the
build
work
it.
in and now we enjoy it.
So you built it and you just didn't give up when it came hard, because I guess after a few years of hard work at the beginning, it took a toll on the relationship and you just didn't give up. You were like, I'll make this work because I love this woman. What would be your number one relationship advice? Like communication, or is it just sticking through and working to love the person every day?
I think that when people need relationship advice, it's because they're transactional. And it means that they're in a state that they want to give love because they want to get love. But a real pure love, an unconditional love, doesn't work that way. A gift is given with no strings attached. So my advice would be, wake up every day to the person you love and ask them, how can I love you today? And then whatever they ask, you just do it. You do it at least as well as they want it done. And then at the end of the day, you follow up and just ask how you could have done it better. And then what do you get in return? Nothing. You get a soft heart. You get a heart that loves and gives because that's who you are. It's not because you're going to get something back. And what
Yes.
that does is that evokes something in a partner, because it's beautiful to be loved that way. And often it becomes the perfect invitation for them in time to also learn to love you back that way.
I love it. Is there any question that I didn't ask you that you want to share with the audience? Is there any last message you want to share before you tell us where they can find you? Anything else?
When I was 19 years old, I had a near-death experience, and I came out of that ocean I went in because I wanted to save my sister's life. But when I walked out of that ocean, I realized that God had spared me and it had to be for a reason. And I believe that if you're listening to this, it's your heart beating. Your heart is beating today because you have a mission, you have a purpose. And big dreams, they require you to get your shit together. They require you to get your health together because it means that you want to live longer. It requires you to invest in your relationships because the size of your dream will always be connected to the number of people a part of it. And producing wealth, that's a game. Anyone can learn the rules of building wealth, like real estate. Everyone, you should have real estate. Real estate is passive. It's in the background. This year, I'll acquire hundreds of properties with no time, effort, and energy, and it gets me rich, but it doesn't take my most precious asset of time. And anyone can learn that. You're not making money for the sake of making money or maybe having a better lifestyle. In the beginning, you want to get good at making money because you want to fund your dreams and you want to fund memory making because you can live a beautiful life on the poor. But eventually it's fun to go to Thailand and get lost for a month. At some point, it's fun to go out and make memories. At some point, you want to be able to write $100,000 check to an organization that is doing good in the world, and they need your money to further their work of good. Money is the common denominator. And so while you don't have to have it to be happy, having more of it does allow you to create more meaningful memories. And I believe that that's why we're here on this planet. So, for anyone that wants to get better at making passive money, if you want to tap into my expertise in real estate over the last 20 years, there's a way that you can do that. You can go to freewealthgift.com/wealth call, get with a member of my team, ask them the fastest path to become financially free. And you may end up finding a path that is just perfect for you. And if it is, we might be partnering together and I might be building wealth for you and with you.
I love it, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate. And guys, trust him. I wouldn't bring him on the podcast if I didn't believe in him. And how did I get to know Kris? At first, it's because a guy that was mentoring me says that Kris is mentoring him. So that's how high Kris is. I was like, wow, okay. If you're getting mentor and Kris is like giving you amazing advice, I'm like, I want to hear about that guy and I want to hear what he does. And that's why I wanted to bring him. And I really appreciate the time that you gave me, that you gave my audience. Make sure you follow him, guys. He has a lot of content for free. You can take this free assessment with his team to know what's the best strategy for you. You go read his book. There's a lot of knowledge out there. And you're the perfect example of somebody that followed the road to abundance. So I wish you an amazing day, brother. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it, man.
Really happy to be here, everybody. Thank you, Mike.